Good morning, friends, wherever you are, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee live stream. And I am very happy that you're here, and we have more folks coming on, I can see. Let's go ahead and welcome some of you initially. Let's see here. Let's see who's here. Noise Media Productions. Now, do you pronounce that Noise? Noise Media Production? Noise? That would be kind of clever. Noise Media's Production. Now, are you into media production? Is that what you do? I'd be very curious. Alex Dewar. Good morning, Alex, from Manitoba. I wonder if it's cold up there. Got into the 30s here, mid-30s. And Z-Zip is here. Fishman Marcus. Hello, Fishman Marcus and Z-Zip. Amber Keys here. Good morning to you. And Emin Fountain, good to see you, Emin, my friend, over in the UK. Hope you're doing well out there. And Larry O'Brien is here from Florida, probably a little warmer than here. In the Jeans, good morning from St. Louis, In the Jeans. Love these names, just love these names. Gus Frazier's here. Predator Haps. Now, you know, the over in Oakville, Ontario, now that whole idea of a Predator Hap, you know, that originated with Evan, IFG. He has the trademark on that, and and Adam C on YouTube. Check out those channels. They I think they started that whole Predator Hap thing because it doesn't really exist in science, the term Predator Hap. John Wallace, good morning, John, and GP, my moderators are here, and Cat Sailor, good morning, Cat Sailor, and R Baglio, John Wallace. Okay, hey John, another moderator. FTM Dark Druid, aloha from Hawaii. Hey, FTM, I heard they got rid of that beer river. You had a river of beer there in Hawaii, and so I guess we can't swim and drink beer at the same time anymore. Check it out on Google if you don't know what I'm talking about. Hey, Matt, Frankie's here, and Blazek Michalski, what a great name. Hello from Poland. Nice to have you here all the way from Poland. My goodness. Eddie Hernandez. Good morning, Eddie. And let's see. Pete the Greek. I love these names. All right. I could spend all morning just giving you big shout outs here. But Mary Page is here. And Jay and Travis and Gus and Vincenzo. What a great name. Fish. Good evening from Dublin. Vincenzo. My son is opening up an office. It is his birthday today. Happy birthday, Adam, if you're watching. Opening up an office for his company in Dublin. So, at any rate, he is probably not too far from you. So, let's see here. We have a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and we got a few more folks here getting on. Let's go ahead and let them go on. And let's go ahead and officially start the live stream. What do you say? Are you drinking out of one of these? If you are, say yes in the comments. I'm telling you, coffee tastes better in one of these cups. I don't know what it is. For those of you who are new to the channel, be sure to hit that sub button. And as you can see, the one I'm hiding behind here, I can move over here. And, hit that like if you like what you see. Thank you very much for that. And that tells YouTube something good is going on here. And for those of you who'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a Patreon. Right here, Patreon. Hit that logo on the bottom of the channel banner, and it'll take you to the Patreon page. Also, consider using the Amazon link to get to Amazon. Anything you buy on Amazon from my store or anywhere on Amazon gives a credit to the channel, doesn't increase your cost 1 penny. Also, Teespring. On Teespring, you can pick up cool t-shirts like this and coffee mugs and hoodies and all kinds of good stuff. So visit the Teespring store as well for those who would like to support the channel. And a big shout out to my friend James over at the Cichlid Shack. And all the fish you see in here, These are all from the shack, and he is a sponsor of the channel. You know, prayers and thoughts and good vibes to James at the Cichlids Shack and his family. They all have COVID. The shop is continuing to run with help that he has there. But let's send a positive vibe out there to James and his family and hope that they recover quickly, smoothly. He was having some trouble breathing. I am a little bit worried. At any rate, positive prayers and thoughts in that direction, please. And let's go ahead and jump into it here. And I have some topics that you may or may not agree with. You might want to argue with me about. That's okay. It's okay to argue with me. And but I'm going to go ahead and cover them regardless. And let me get a real quick sound check. How's the sound and the picture? Hey Jerry, glad to see you here. Sound and picture. How are sound and picture? Are we good? I'll wait for some sign. Rico Stan comes in with a $5 super chat. Check out Rico Stan. He's got a very unique fish keeping YouTube channel that is comprised primarily of discussions and talk about what's going on and live streaming. I think he's almost entirely live streaming. And it's just a very unique approach to being a YouTuber. He's a good guy. And so check him out, Rico Stan. Also, be sure to check out Jerry's Fish Room. Jerry's Fish Room. We're trying to get that channel going. And Jerry is what I consider one of the good guys in the hobby. And just a very good, kind gentleman. Let's go ahead and build that channel up. What do you say? Erna's here. And thank you for that sound check. Thank you for the sound check, guys. I'm glad it's working. And, you know, you don't really know on this end unless I have a monitor with headphones, so I could watch it. But that drives you crazy because it's on like a 5-second delay. And so if I have a monitor running, what I end up with is this weird echo in the background, and it just drives you nuts. So thank you, Arbaglio. So let's go ahead and Fishman Marcus, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and get into these fish keeping myths, and you may agree or you may disagree with them. Certainly express your thoughts in the chat below or in the comments if you watch this on the replay. But there's these urban legends that just sort of come up in the hobby, and they get passed from person to person, and sometimes they come from a person that you would think is reliable, and because of that, it gets accepted at face value, and doesn't really get scrutinized, doesn't really get looked into. Well, you know, so-and-so said it, so, you know, the guy at the fish store, the gal at the fish store, the YouTuber said it, must be true. No. Not necessarily. Unfortunately, a lot of urban legends and myths and what have you circulate around. And move this camera a little bit. I feel like I'm a little bit pushed against the edge of the frame here. There we go. A little better. Okay. So let's get into these, and certainly comment below. And you know what? I put in the thumbnail that there's 7, but you know me. I mean, I started thinking about it, and I just had more of them come into my mind, and I figured I'd go ahead and go over all of them. And so you're going to get a little bit more than 7. You're going to get some bonuses. And hey, guys, that tangerine tiger is just a beast. Very sweet, very friendly fish. Doesn't bother anybody. Kind of like that Buccochromis notatania here in the bottom. They just kind of swim around. And, you know, since I pulled out the Phoenix so that I could treat that foggy eye, and I pulled out the dragon blood, this has been a lot calmer. And even the living stone eye is not really there he goes chasing somebody on cue. But he just stays in his corner and defends his little rock pile. But there's nobody really getting damaged. I mean, even this bicolor 500 right here. Look at that bicolor 500. That's a real docile fish that normally would not do well with as aggressive haps as I have in here, and he's doing great. So no fin damage. So, and there's some occasional standoffs and chases, but the main thing you look for is you look at the fins. You look for fin damage. You look for marks on the side where they may have lost a few scales from being hit on the side. You also look for any persistent, never-ending chase, like a nonstop bullying. Now, interestingly enough, that little Eureka Red, that used to be my killer. I even have a video out on him called Killer Fish. He's calmed down now. He's not that big compared to everybody else now. He's becoming a little bit more on the smaller side in the tank, but he moved in immediately. The second the Phoenix was taken out, he moved into the Phoenix apartment. So right behind that plant. And you see the pile? You see the pile of substrate right there? He kind of got into the white aragonite. So he's making a hole back there the same way that the Phoenix was making a hole back there. So that's obviously some choice, highly desirable real estate back there. But he's not going after anybody. I mean, he keeps him away from his little spot, but he's not relentlessly going after other fish, and that's a good thing. And other fish are not going after him, as you can see from his fins, because when I first put him in, he took a beating, in particular from the dragon blood. But he was shredded. He had lots of cuts and tears in his dorsal from being attacked from above. His tail was shredded, and now he seems to be healing up really well. So here's another fish, a Lethrinops oculatus, that you wouldn't expect to be doing well in a tank like this, but he's doing fine. Now, it could be the tank size. Now, when I do that experiment, when that Phoenix finally gets that eye cleared up, and he had a full regimen of antibiotics. It looks a little better now. The antibiotics are over, so I'm doing water changes, and so as soon as that eye clears up, I'll throw him in here in the no decor 55 behind me, along with the dragon blood, possibly pull out the Livingstone eye, and just see how they do in a tank that has very little decor. And just sort of as an experiment. So that's when that's going to happen. So we'll see. And now that I've said all that, we'll probably have a battle break out in the tank behind me. That's what the fish do, just to make me seem foolish. What about that Autopharynx tetrastigma right there? That fish is nuts. And I mean nuts in a beautiful way. So is the guy up here. You can't really see him, but that Johnson eye. There's a Johnson eye up there that is just absolutely beautiful. You can catch him on camera. So at any rate, let's go ahead and get into the list here. And looks like we have about almost 70 people on the 70 people here. Let's see if we can get this thing over 100. And Amber Key, my female Venusis, turns out to be a male. Put him in a different tank with new mates, and his colors popped. There you go. There you go. Sometimes they color down just to be off the radar. They don't want to be a threat to anybody, and so they go real gray. They kind of go, hey, look, I could be a female, so, And then all of a sudden, you put them in different circumstances, and they get a nice blue face. They get a nice pronounced blaze on the forehead. I don't know where my oh, he's over there. Come on over here, man. I have a Venusis over here. Check out the blaze. If he comes under the camera, check out the blaze on that Venusis. It's just crazy. All right, so let's talk about fish keeping myths. And here's the first one that you hear around, and you still hear it around for some reason. And that's that the size of your tank the size of your tank will determine how big your fish gets. Have you ever heard that one before? If you keep him in a small tank, he's not going to grow. That's not true. And this is why you see so many large fish all by themselves at the local fish store, because somebody with a 29-gallon brought in that 10-inch pleco, or that 9-inch Oscar. They just keep growing. They keep growing, and eventually are in basically like in a small jail. And that one was very common. Oh, he's not going to get that big. I've got him in a 40-gallon. He's not going to get that big. I've got him in a 29. He's not going to grow. He is going to grow, and eventually he's going to be very uncomfortable. Maybe even jump on you. Maybe bang against the glass. Things of that nature. So that one is now. You do have factors like genetics, maybe stress, quality of nutrition, right? Quality of care, of the quality of the water. There are some factors that could influence how large that fish actually ends up getting, but the size of the tank, that is a that's an urban legend. That's a wives' tale. Number 2, every tank needs a bubbler or an air stone. I think we all know that that's not true. I think you still hear that. They seem to be included in most kits. I understand why. But the truth is that anything that is going to break surface tension, you do need to have some surface tension breakup. Now, if you have, let's say, a tank that is heavily planted and has 2 or 3 neons in it and a filter that's moving water around, I mean, you might not need that much surface breakup. But if you have a tank with fish this size, and look, if you can see the surface, I don't know if you can see it on there, but I have a tremendous amount of surface tension breakup between the output of the sump, right? You have a 2,500 gallon per hour sump pump, and then I have a 3,500 gallon per hour on the far end, which is mostly circulating water, and that is a wave maker. And then I have the outputs of the FX6, and one of them pointed up and one of them pointed to the front of the tank. So I have a tremendous amount of surface tension breakup, so that the carbon, the waste of the fish can leave and be replaced by oxygen. And that's really how you oxygenate a tank, with surface tension breakup. If you have a power outage and you don't have battery powered air pumps, every now and then going up to the tank and just running your fingers across the top of the tank, maybe stirring it around with something, pouring out a bucket of water, pouring the bucket back in, that'll help to oxygenate the tank in the event of a power outage. I think in power outages, the biggest thing that kills your fish is a lack of oxygen. But that's a topic for another video. But at any rate, you don't need a bubbler. I did put a bubbler in my 90-gallon only because I put a sheet of plexi on the top of it, because I had a vieja that jumped out right in front of me, and I didn't know there were jumpers. I mean, he jumped and landed a couple feet from the tank. I mean, it was quite a jump. I wish I'd caught it on video. But at any rate, because I put plexi in there and I'm covering up the top very tightly, I went ahead and put a bubbler in there just to bring in some outside air and circulate air underneath that cover. But you do not need a bubbler to have a healthy tank. And let's see. Number 3, adding salt to your tank will help keep your fish healthy. Not true. Now, if you're using salt as a treatment, you're trying to create a little bit, you're trying to get some constipation issues, some bloating issues, you're trying to get something maybe you're using it as part of an ick regimen, treating ick. There are some uses for salt, but adding salt, just your standard kosher or Morton salt or aquarium salt, every time you do a water change, things of this nature, not for freshwater fish. Saltwater fish, of course. Freshwater fish, no, they don't need salt. And now that's different from what is commonly sold as Malawi lake salt by, for example, Seachem. And that is not salt. The chemical composition of that it's actually trace minerals that the fish can then absorb, since the minerals that they get are what is in the water. And this is why you need regular water changes, and it doesn't hurt to supplement them with something like Malawi lake salt, because that gives them fresh minerals. Minerals over time, just like most things in your tank, over time they will settle to the bottom and no longer be available to the fish for them to absorb. And so you'll end up with fish with a mineral deficiency. So you do need to add minerals, or at least do water changes which refresh and replenish minerals. But salt on a regular basis, unless you're keeping brackish fish. Now, brackish fish are fish that are in parts of the world where oceans and rivers are close together, and so you're getting salt, or for whatever reason, there's salt in that water. That is a brackish fish, and that fish will need some salt in the water. Interestingly enough, African cichlids have a very high tolerance for salt. And again, going back, I've mentioned before, to the theory that their origins may have been in salt water. But you could probably use a level of, hey buddy, you could probably use a level of salt with these fish that you cannot use with other fish. For example, people do salt baths, things of that nature. For a bloated or a constipated fish, they'll put them in a salt bath. You can use a much more intense salt bath with these fish than you would, let's say, with other types of fish. So, salt. I think this is number 4. You need carbon in your filters. And most filter cartridges that you buy, like the ones for the Marineland Emperor 400s that I have on several of my tanks, they come infused with carbon. Some of the filters that I've picked up from Higer, they usually will send them with a packet of carbon. Now, initially, carbon's good. Kind of picks up any bad components that might be in the water initially. Any pollutants that might be in there. They're good. It's good if you have, let's say, a bad smell in your tank, maybe a slight tint. It helps if you have, let's say you put some wood in there and you're getting some tannins and you don't want the tannins. Carbon can help with that. Carbon is great for after you've medicated. For example, I'm putting a little bit of carbon in the tank that I have the Phoenix in. Now that his antibiotic treatment is finished, I'll put the carbon in there for about a month and then throw that carbon out. Whenever I use carbon, I never use it for longer than a month because it does become saturated. But you do not need carbon in every filter. Now, if you want to use something to absorb impurities, to maybe help with water clarity, you can use products like Seachem Purigen. Right, that's a resin. You have these resin products that are super absorbent. Seachem Purigen, one of them. Boyd Industries makes one, right? ChemiPure Blue. If you have live plants, they have ChemiPure Green. These are products that are sort of like carbon on crack. Just super absorbent products. And when I've had in the past, in the very beginning, when a tank was just sort of coming along and maybe having a little bit of that, what some people call new tank syndrome, I went ahead and used some of those products and they worked. I've also used ultraviolet UV initially, and that also can help to clarify the water. So you don't need carbon. You do not need carbon. And it does have special uses, and it is a good thing to use, and but you don't need it. Here's another one, number 5. Your new tank needs to be sitting around for at least a month before you can put fish in it. No, that's a lie. As a matter of fact, what you're trying to do with your new tank is develop a colony of beneficial bacteria, and what that beneficial bacteria needs primarily is oxygen and waste. The oxygen, right when you're cycling your tank in the beginning, have water circulation, have surface tension breakup, put in your bubbler, have oxygen, have water movement initially, but you need waste from somewhere. Now, some people use ammonia. They put ammonia drops. Fritz has a starter program, a new tank starter program that has ammonia, a special ammonia that you put into the tank, and but the truth is, the sooner you start introducing fish, the better. And because those fish will provide to the beneficial bacteria the food that it needs. Now, of course, you're treating the tank, you're using water conditioner. Maybe you're also adding Fritz Zyme 7, right? C-Chem stability. Maybe you're adding some things. For me, what's gotten these tanks up and running immediately has been when it became available to me, right? Because I started from scratch here in this garage. But once I had tanks established and I was able to pull really dirty media out of filters and then save it. I save it currently in the sump underneath this tank. There's a 29-gallon sump, and it has media that I've pulled out of the Haiger hang-on filters and also the Marineland filters. So that's sitting down there, all nice and dirty and full of beneficial bacteria. And so I can use that or pieces of those items to jumpstart an aquarium. And that really is the best way to jumpstart an aquarium. But you do not need to leave an aquarium. You don't need to let it sit for 30 days before you add fish. That may actually be counterproductive. Number 6. A new tank is ready to add fish because I used water from an established tank. Have you heard that one before? I don't know what happened. I used water from my established tank, and then 2 weeks later, all the fish were struggling, and then they died. Well, there is some beneficial bacteria, a very small amount, in the water column, but it's negligible. And it's not enough to really support what's going on. What you need is the beneficial bacteria that is on rocks, on decor, in your substrate, right? On your filter media. Those are all the things that really have the mature, well-populated beneficial bacteria. So, no. Using water from an established tank, what will happen is initially the fish will look okay. And slowly their ammonia production will exceed the amount of bacteria you brought over, the amount of that bacteria to handle it. Now, the whole time the bacteria is multiplying, right? But you will have an ammonia spike, you'll have some nitrite, and those things are very, very deadly, and your fish will start struggling, and then they'll die. So, no, water from an established tank will not give you an instant tank. Number 7, let water sit out for at least 24 hours, and then it's ready to use, and you don't need conditioner. That's not true. That's false. Now, there's exceptions to everything I say here. There's exceptions. If your water's from a well, yeah, you probably don't even need to let it sit, unless you have nitrate runoff from local farms. That happens. So I tell people with well water to be sure to check their well anyway. Go ahead and check their well water occasionally, right? Run a test on it. But If you use city water and that city water has chlorine, the chlorine will actually gas off. Ammonia, I believe ammonia can also gas off over time. Not as quickly, I don't think, as chlorine. The one that'll stay in there is the chloramine. Chloramine will not gas off, if I understand that correctly. So you still need to add some conditioner, even though your water has sat in a tub for 24 hours. The other risk with water sitting in a tub for 24 hours is that you're going to have a huge mismatch in temperature. One of the reasons that I prefer running water from tap to tank using a hose system, right? Like a Python. One of the reasons I like that is that I can temperature match within a degree or so, and then I can go ahead and fill up the tank that way. So GP says ammonia does gas off. There you go. And so, yes, your ammonia and your chlorine, if you leave your water out, will gas off. Chloramine was developed, I believe, so that it stays in the water, so that sitting water is not going to actually become contaminated in some way. So I kind of see the intention behind it. It's not good for fish keepers. So you do need to treat that water anyway. All right. Let's get into a couple bonus ones here. I've had people tell me all food is the same. Fish food is fish food. That's not true. If you start looking at the ingredients in the back of fish food, you'll see things like fillers, you'll see wheat products, you'll see very low percentages of protein, you'll see very low amounts of what it is the fish needs to digest. There are some foods out there, and I'm not going to mention any names, but there are some foods that will actually, in some cases, be almost like a net zero. In other words, the fish will use as much energy to move that food through their gut as much as the nutrients that they're getting from the food. It is so nutrient depleted. This is why I've said in numerous videos that the one place you don't want to cut corners, where you want to, kind of cringe and go ahead and spend the extra money, is with quality food. And there's a lot of good quality foods out there these days. I mean, I'm using currently Extreme. My fish love Extreme. They have some good. Cobalt came out with a good line of food. I think Northfin. I think they had a little bit of a hiccup a little while back, but I think they've cleaned up. Northfin's got great food. There's some new people on the market. Just got some food from these guys. Ultra Fresh. This is Ultra Fresh Shrimp Delight. It's just full of shrimp and just good stuff. If you look at the ingredient, 100% all natural, no preservatives, protein from like meat, vegetables, and seaweed. Ultra fresh. You can see it there. Good stuff. And I'm going to be doing a review on this product, breaking it down further, and then giving you some links. It's a slow sinking food, which I like. That way more fish have a shot at it. Piscine Energetics. Piscine Energetics. Not cheap, but very high quality. Very high quality. Piscine Energetics. There's some great foods out there. Just do a little research. Don't cut corners. All foods are not the same. And did I miss a super chat? When I get going on these things, I don't really look at the chat that much, but let me see here. Did I miss one? Jerry's Fish Room comes in. Thank you, Jerry. Volunteers his time as a moderator and then throws some money at me. I'm telling you, here is my fine for skipping school the last 2 weeks. Tank is looking great. Jerry, you had a legitimate reason, and I'm very glad to see that you're back. I had a pleasure of spending time with Jerry at Aquashella in Orlando. I did not make Aquashella in Dallas for a variety of reasons, but we'll see about the future here. Here's another one. And some people are not going to like me when I say this, but I'll say it anyway. you don't get better results because you paid more for the media. That's not necessarily true. And when I see aquariums that are running with pot scrubbers in their sump or in their canister or even in their hang-on back filters, and they have a very healthy, vibrant tank. So it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have Marine Pure, Biohome, right? Matrix. It doesn't hurt to have high-end media. I think it's fine. I think it's great stuff. I've used it with great results. But if you decide to start relying primarily on sponges, on substrate, on decor, on pot scrubbers, if you rely on those things and you are doing a good job of maintaining your tank, you're doing the work, right? Like I talked about in that last tips video, you do the work. You're going to have a healthy tank. You're going to have a healthy tank. And you're going to have about, depending on the size of your filter in your tank, you'll probably have between $50 and $100 in your pocket. Now, it's true. Your media purchase is a one-time purchase. So the media goes for years. I had Biohome running for almost 5 years, and it was still rock solid. The Biohome, the Marine Pure actually was breaking up more than the Biohome. So I've run both those medias, and so it is a one-time purchase. You buy, but you know, in my mind, so are sponges to a large degree. I mean, you buy a sponge from Swiss Tropicals, you know, one of those Matin Porate sponges, you know, with they're super high quality and provide miles and miles of places for beneficial bacteria. Those things are going to last you years and years and years. And especially if you rinse them gently and there's no reason why they should actually break out. And Paul, yeah, you know, Paul, I put a video out one time on Biohome, and I had an aquarium that was arguably the most stable aquarium I've ever had. Currently, the aquarium is owned by Kevin Green. It has my Lethrinops red cap in it and a couple other fish. And I had two Sun 302s, canister filters, and they had Biohome, and one of them had Biohome Ultimate, and they had the Marine Pure. So very high end, and I tell you, that tank was rock solid. Never a bleep, never a hiccup, nothing. So yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about those high end media. All I'm saying is that if your budget is such that that's not really something, you can conceivably go a different direction and save some money. At the same time, I think, Richard over at Biohome, I think the folks at Marine Pure, even the folks at CCAM, I think that they've done research and they believe in their products. And CCAM probably hates it when I say that you can get garden pumice, which is going to work a lot like Matrix. And that's the truth. Garden store pumice, white garden store pumice is going to work a lot like, if not identical, to your CCAM Matrix. And you'll save a lot of money. Get a 50-pound bag for what you pay for a small... Okay, here's another one that you may or may not agree with. You should clean your filters on a schedule. I say no. No, don't clean your filters on a schedule. Clean your filters when your filters tell you they need to be cleaned. When the pressure coming out of the sump starts to slow down, when the pressure on the FX6, when I lower the water line and the FX6 is on and I notice that it's not shooting water out as far as it used to, when the overflow channels on the hang-on back or your little pop-up button, depending on what kind of hang-on back you have, when those things go up and tell you that there's clogging, that's when you change. That's when you service the filter. That, I think the less you mess with it, the better. Honestly, the less you mess with it, the better. The less likely you are to disrupt your beneficial bacteria, the less likely you are to create an ammonia spike, the less stress you're going to cause for your fish. So do it when you have to, but don't do it without thinking. You see, it's again, like I've said, it's a fluid situation, right? Like it says on the back of my T-shirt, fish keeping is a fluid situation. I add another 10 fish to this tank, and I'll have to go from 4 to 6 months on the FX6 to maybe every 3 months, even with the pre-filter. If I were to get rid of 2/3 of my fish, I could go 6 months to 8 months and still have a very strong flow in the FX6. So it's something you're doing. You're not doing it just robotically, right? You're doing it based on your observation. And I've had my marine land filters. I've serviced them and had them have the overflow channels almost immediately. Obviously, there was something in the water that was getting filtered out, and so I pull out one of the cartridges, replace the pinky floss, or do whatever it is I do, right? And now, just as a bonus tip, if you service these filters, I don't suggest that you do a big water change or a gravel vacuum at the same time. When you service your filters, just service your filters, and only service, if you have multiple filters, just service one and service the other one a week or two later. And after servicing, just as a safeguard, throw a little conditioner in the water. And nothing to lose. A couple capfuls of Fritz Complete, right? Seachem Prime, just as a little safeguard. And I'll tell you, it'll just go a little bit smoother. A little bit smoother. One more. Well, two more. I got two more for you. You don't need to stir up your grout. You don't need to stir up your substrate to release and prevent gas pockets. I've talked to several very, very experienced fish keepers, and they've told me that that is an urban legend, and that even if a pocket did develop, it would go to the surface and gas off. Do you know anybody that is 100% verified that they lost fish because of a gas pocket that came out from under their sand? So apparently, I don't know where this started, but it did. Now, that being said, I will from time to time, very lightly, like a 1/4 inch of rake. I will rake the substrate just to freshen it up, right? So it looks new and clean, especially the white substrate, which can develop a little bit of a mulm, a little bit of a coating on it, right? So every now and then I'll go ahead and rake, give it a very light, maybe a 1/4 inch raking, but I do not go deep into it because I want bacteria living in there. I want some anaerobic developing over time. And there was a fish store in San Francisco. I think Tazawa's tanks, Zenzo Tazawa. If you don't know the channel, check out Tazawa's tanks. And a very good guy, along with Evan Alexander, IFG. I think they visited an aquarium store in San Francisco that was using like 6-inch substrate in the tanks, and they hadn't changed water or done anything to that substrate for 20 years. Was it 10 or 20 years? Some enormous amount of time. No problems. No issues. The tanks were in great shape. The fish were extremely hardy, right? So, gas pockets. Now, listen, if you disagree with anything I'm saying here, comment. Go ahead and comment. I'd like to hear. And, I think over the years, now Frankie says gas pockets in salt water. Now that Saltwater chemistry is a different, right? It's a different thing. I'm not familiar with saltwater chemistry, so yeah, there you go. Maybe that is where it sort of spilled over into the freshwater community. Sometimes we get good things from the salties, right? Technology and, we get good things. Sometimes maybe we get bad information or information that applies there but doesn't apply in our world of freshwater. Now, this is the last one I'll share with you, and it's the most important one. What you hear from somebody on YouTube, from the person at the local fish store, what you hear from them is always true. That's not true. It's not true. There's a lot of false information, a lot of wrong information that is passed out, both by people in fish stores. I know one of the bad raps that the big box, your Petco, PetSmarts, people like that. One of the bad raps they get is that sometimes the employees are not really trained, and you'll be there and you'll overhear them giving somebody very bad advice. Yes, that Oratus, that Mabuna, that Oratus will get along with your angelfish. It'll be fine. And of course, it's going to be a bloodbath. So, no. Information you get from your local fish store sometimes can be very, very wrong. Information you pick up from people on YouTube, including me, go back over to some of my older videos. There's some stuff back there that today I have a whole different viewpoint on. But you have to do your own research. You really have to do your own research. And at the end of the day, rely exclusively, ultimately, on information that you yourself have verified. And I have taken stuff at face value and used it in my tanks and lost fish because of it, because I didn't really see how that tip applied to my circumstances. Now, that being said, there's also a tremendous amount of good information available from local fish keepers, from local stores, even from big box stores where they have experienced fish keepers working in their fish department, and from YouTubers. There's also good information, okay? Don't throw it all out. But realize that because it came from that source does not mean that it's right. And man, oh man, second, really cross-check, really cross-check, because you can make some big mistakes. So let's take a look at your comments, your questions. I'm going to go ahead and scroll through the chat here and take a look at what's going on. Hey, Mary Page and Jay Fuller, did I say hi to you folks? I hope so. And did I miss another super chat? Maybe not. For those of you who don't know, super chat's a way to throw a little money at the dancer. And that's a bad joke. I'm sorry. So, research before you purchase. Yes, Amber Key, very, very profound advice right there. Research before you purchase. Now, we also know that very often our purchases are impulse purchases. And using that Oratus example, is there anything cuter than a young Oratus? Yellow with a black stripe and very cute, and, fast forward 3 months and, it's a battle royale. So, yeah, I get it. So, let's see here. I'm looking at your comments here, going through the chat. Julius Barnica or Barnisha? Barnisha? I'm just going to call you Julius. How's that? Julius is getting ideas for stocking my show tank. What are you putting in there, Julius? Are you putting in African cichlids, discus, community tank, planted? What are you doing? I'm sure there's a lot of folks here that could give you some advice. What kind of fish are you leaning towards? Hey, KG Cichlids. Talked about you a little bit. Maybe you were here. Talked about that the 60 gallon that you picked up from me with that with Photoshop, the red cap in there. Gus Frazier, Predator Haps. The only thing better than a bonus tip is a pro tip. I don't know what you mean. Okay, let's see. Any questions? Go ahead and ask them now as I'm going through the chat. Noel Edward, what do you reckon maximum fish in a 90 gallon? Well, Noel, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that I am a bit reluctant to just throw out a number because you have a lot of factors in there, like what kind of fish, how big are those fish going to be in a year and a half, what's the filtration on the 90 gallon, how often are you going to service the 90 gallon, what kind of water changes are you going to be doing? If you're going to be doing twice a week water changes of 60 to 70%, you have 2 big canisters, a hang-on back, or maybe a sump on there. You could have a lot of fish. You could have a lot of fish. If you're going to do a water change maybe once a month, maybe a planted tank with a once-a-month water change, I don't know. Maybe you want to go light, 10, 15 fish, community fish. But again, we have to look at what kind of fish. If you're going to go with, let's say, large haps that are going to become 7, 8 inches in some cases over 10 inches, you're going to have to limit the number of fish. I mean, it's a fluid situation. I would say if I had to throw a number out, I'd go, okay, 15. And 2 of those are catfish. One's a pleco. And anyway, there's no one size, one size fits all. If anyone knows anything about omega 1, I don't think I've used omega 1. Bayou 54CTC wants to know about omega 1. If you've used omega 1 and have had results with it, go ahead and comment and go ahead and answer his or her question. Slim Tim, get a hold of Dirty Filter. Great equipment. That's right. Slim Tim, Dirty Filters. Nothing better, I don't think. Joe, you were late. Can I see a note, please? That excuses you, Joe. I'm glad you're here, Joe. And you can catch the part you missed on the replay. Yeah, it's Noya's Media Productions. My fish go absolutely nuts on Extreme. It's a good fish food. If you pick it up from the Cichlid Shack, you will get 10% off. You can get 10% off on anything from the Cichlid Shack using Shack Attack 10 as the code. For fish, you get 15% off if you exceed $100, which is very easy to do. If you're going to pay overnight air freight, which is about $50, $60, if you're going to pay that much for shipping, you might as well put together an order that's going to be $100, $200 or more, and that way the percentage of the shipping isn't that much. And then you take 15% off the cost of the fish. That's a nice savings. I have not used the Hikari. I've heard people rave about Hikari. I have not used Hikari. Let's see. Michael is asking about Nicholas. GP always adds bacteria always add bacteria to my tank at a water change. Not a bad idea. You might consider that to be a little bit overcautious, but you know what? I'd rather err in that direction than unintentionally create an ammonia spike. And then you come in the next morning and you've got fish that are either dead or obviously struggling, and that's never a good thing. Paul is doing a 60% water change on that's per week on his African cichlid tank. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Are you testing the water? I'm curious. What are your nitrate levels before you do the change? Are your nitrate levels at over 20? Under 20? I'd be curious about that. Tamara Ciros, Tamra Ciros. Do you ever have any issues with sand substrate turning black? I stir up my substrate every other day, and there's always black sand. I have less than an inch of sand. Drives me crazy. Well, it sounds like you have a little bit of black algae growing in your sand. Now, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe a pleco would help with that. I mean, black algae is very difficult to work with. And at the same time, it's something alive in your substrate. You may want to add another inch of new substrate. You know, give it a good wash and then add a little bit at a time, maybe a cup or two a week until you have like a nice layer on top of it. And then, you know, just watch that and see how it goes. But it does sound like you have a little bit of black algae, a little bit of a black algae bloom. I've had that happen to artificial plants, and it's almost impossible without taking the plants out of the tank, putting them in a 5-gallon bucket, adding a couple tablespoons of bleach, letting them sit for 48 hours, pouring all the water out, rinsing them like crazy, then filling it up again with water and adding some conditioner, letting it sit for 2 days, and then pulling them out and scrubbing. That black algae is just really, really nasty stuff. Joel Aquatic, can I mix Oscar with African cichlids? I think you have different water parameters. Your Oscars need a pH that is different. I have people who have done it. And if you go on YouTube, you'll see tanks with Oscars and African cichlids. You'll also see silver dollars. I used to have clown loaches. Can be done, I guess, but not usually recommended. Paul says he's over 20 parts per million. Yeah, all right. So, and if you have no nitrates coming out of your tap, probably 60% to 70% every week is not a bad idea as a water change. GP telling Amber he feeds once a day, but twice is fine too. And that's one way you can lower your nitrates. Feed less. Very often we overfeed. I feed these fish a very large amount of food, but they consume it within 30 seconds. I mean, it is gone. And if you saw how, I think at the end of the last live stream, I did a feeding. It's a lot of food, but it is gone. And what isn't gone, they then, will forage and, harvest off the bottom. So, but again, it's one of those things where you got to use your judgment. If there's food just sitting around, you're just feeding nitrates. You're just building up ammonia, which is going to eventually give you high nitrates. Cat Sailor, aren't pot scrubbers treated with chemicals? You buy the ones that don't have any soap or anything in them. They're just plain raw pot scrubbers. You can buy them with no additives. It should say on the label. Those are the plastic pot scrubbers, right? Fishman Marcus, please don't mix Oscars with African cichlids. Yeah, you have purists out there and other folks who are they will cringe when they see that. And I don't even mix Mabuna with haps and peacocks. So, and I found that settled things down. When the Mabuna put on size, they were vicious territory protectors and would just shred the haps and peacocks. All right. So with that being said, I want to thank my moderators. Thank you very much for the help. A special shout out to all of you who are members of the Garage Gang and Patreons. Thank you for that extra support. It does help a lot. It will be being used to finance the next series of upgrades to the garage. That's what that Patreon fund is for. Patreon memberships go from $3 on up, And at the higher levels, you do get things like hoodies and coffee mugs and Garage Gang t-shirts and things like that. So, so thank you to all of you. Thank you to those of you who gave it a thumbs up. I appreciate you. And I think with that, we are going to go ahead and start to wrap up, unless you have some burning question that you absolutely have to ask me. Then forever hold your peace. Tomorrow, by the way, tomorrow, I am going to be releasing a video on 3 products. I'm going to be reviewing 3 products. Those of you who are Patreons, you've already seen the video because you get the early link. But there's 3 products that are going to be reviewed in tomorrow's video. And I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it. 3 products that were sent to me by Iger and a cousin company of theirs, Aqua, AQQA. And these are cool products. I think you'll like them. And don't forget to give a little support to the Cichlid Shack. They're going through a little bit of a rough patch with COVID. And, good thoughts, vibes, prayers over for a quick recovery for James and his family. All of them have COVID right now. So there you go. So that's it for me, my friends. Thank you so much. You are greatly appreciated. You're the best. Hope to see you this next Saturday. And have a great Thanksgiving. If you're in the United States, you know what I mean. Be sure to overeat. That's the one day you certainly can overeat. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.